Fair use.
Open up you my lips, and let my mouth show forth your praise. Huma, Yahweh, Wiafutsu Yeveka, Mianusa Misaneka Mitaneka. Arise of you, O Yahweh. Let your enemies be scattered, and let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.
Shalom, family, and thank you. Welcome to Into All Truth. I pray that the Ruach HaKodesh will lead you into all truth and show you things to come and transform you by the renewing of your heart so you may know what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of Yahuwah in these end times, knowing that the Spirit of Yahuwah goes before you and guides you and leads you into all truth, the angel of Yahuwah. Thank you so much for your donations. They help me so much. Please pick up Moed Into All Truth calendar to help you keep the appointed times, or Chaya Eat Life and Fast to help you fast and eat according to Torah. So today we're going to discuss a very dark subject, the whole Baalenciaga affair and human trafficking and the dark star, the black sun that is rising. Now, it's always important to remember Yahuwah is the light, and my Yahusha, my Savior, whom shall I fear? He's the defender of my life, so of whom shall we be afraid? When evildoers draw nigh against me to eat up my flesh, my persecutors and my enemies, they fainted and fell. You see, the pursuers of Israel always ate them and cannibalized them. But though an army set itself in array against me, my heart shall not be afraid. Though war should rise up against me, in this I am confident. One thing have I asked of Yahuwah, and do I seek after, and that's to dwell in the house of Yahuwah all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of Yahuwah and inquire in his temple. For in the day of evil he shall hide me and set me upon a rock. Yes, in the secret of his tabernacle he shall hide me. He shall hide me and lift me up and set me upon a rock. Then the moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when the Elohim of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and before his ancients gloriously. According to 2 Ezra 15, a star of wrath is going to be poured out in these particular end times. All right? And it's going to be poured out as a weapon. That great and mighty cause shall be puffed up and full of wrath, and the star, and that they will make all the earth afraid, and them that dwell therein, and they shall pour out on every high and eminent place a horrible star, fire, hail, flying swords, and many waters, and all the fields shall be full and all the rivers with the abundance of great waters, and they shall go steadfastly unto Babylon and make her afraid, and they shall come to her and besiege her, and the star and all wrath they shall pour upon her, and then shall dust and smoke go up to heaven for all that dwell about. And all they that be about her shall bewail her. And now then, Asia, or the Chinese, are going to be part of this. So in part one, we already showed you all of the many ways in which that already happened. And so now in this episode, we're going to go more into MK Ultra's connection to these hive genetic experiments that will enable the giants to access the human realm and come into it from the outer realm, and how that dark star will manifest it, the black star. And we're going to connect that black star, that black sun, to Esau Edom, because he is the end of the world. It says Esau is the end of the world. And even in prophecy, it says that all the nations will go against him in particular. And so we're going to just talk about how that wrath is being poured out, how it connects to the genetics and the babies and the whole Baalenciaga affair. And I'm just going to do a review of how all of these fallen angel gods and goddesses have tied into the transatlantic slave trade and the various captivities of Israel over time and their various iterations. I'll review that. We'll continue with the history of MK Ultra mind control and the reason why the fallen angels are so in fear, this great wrath of Yah that they fear, and the rise of Yasharel. Remember, Israel, though you have been enduring these terrible things, when you see these signs begin to happen, lift up your head, for your redemption draws nigh, for you are not appointed unto wrath. Every man is brutish in his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by the graven image. For his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity and the work of errors. In the time of their visitation they shall perish. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. Pour out thy fury upon the heathen that know thee not, and upon the families that call not unto thy name. For they have eaten up Jacob and devoured him and consumed him, and have made his habitation desolate. That Babylon will be captured, and Bel shall be put to shame, Marduk filled with terror, and her images shall be put to shame. Her idols shall be filled with terror. So these are the celebrities and royals. The spirits of the giants in Enoch, it says, shall be like the clouds which shall oppress, corrupt, fall, contend, and bruise upon the earth. They shall be concealed and not rise against the sons of men. For they come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction.
There's a
So chapter 10 of Enoch in its entirety says, Then the Most High, the Great and Holy One, spoke and sent Asarayalahir to the son of Lamech, saying to him, Conceal thyself. Then explain to him the consummation which is about to take place. For all the earth shall perish, the waters of a deluge shall come over the whole earth, and all things which are in it shall be destroyed. And now teach him how he may escape, and how his seed may remain in all the earth. And again Yahuwah said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into darkness. And opening the desert which is in Dudael, cast him there. Throw upon him hurled and pointed stones, covering him with darkness. There shall he remain forever, cover his face that he might not see light. And in the great day of judgment let him be cast into the fire. Restore the earth which the angels have corrupted, and announce life to it, that I may revive it. All the sons of men shall not perish in consequence of every secret by which the watchers have destroyed, and which they have taught their offspring. All the earth has been corrupted by the effects of the teaching of Azazel. To him, therefore, ascribe the whole crime. To Gabriel also Yahuwah said, Go to the biters, to the reprobates, to the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication, the offspring of the watchers. These are the ones from among men. Bring them forth and excite them one against another. Let them perish by mutual slaughter, for the length of days shall not be theirs. They shall all entreat thee, but their fathers shall not obtain their wishes respecting them, for they shall hope for eternal life, and that they may live, each of them, 500 years. To Michael likewise Yahuwah said, Go and announce his crime to Simyaza and to the others who are with him, who have been associated with women, that they might pollute with all their impurity. And when all their sons shall be slain, when they shall see the perdition of their beloved, bind them for 70 generations under the earth. So these are the angels for 70 generations who are under the earth, even to the day of judgment and of consummation, until the judgment, the effect of which will last forever, be completed. Okay, so they're there till the day of judgment. So we already discussed the history of judgments and disasters. Cataclysmic floods and great destruction seem to be associated with the fallen angels. According to the Bible, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Yahuwah came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them in Genesis 6:4, and took from the cattle of the earth and the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air, and taught the mixture of animals of one species with another. And so this is the reason why the Creator Yahuwah had to destroy the earth. I already talked about Og and the giants and how they came up after the flood and had to figure out a way to rebuild their kind in the earth. And so the Tower of Babel was built because they wanted to war against Yah. So Isis was, at the time of Nimrod and even into the time of the Egyptians, was the many-breasted goddess, the ancient Egyptian goddess of marriage, fertility, motherhood, magic, and medicine. She was also the companion of the god Osiris and mother of their child Horus. And Isis absorbed the attributes of most of the other goddesses and gods and became the supreme deity, famous for her curing and redemptive powers. And she was the sister and wife of Osiris, and after his death she became the protector of the dead, and Horus is dead. She becomes the many-breasted goddess of eggs and hordes of hive-like creatures, who is benevolent and feeds the fallen angels. And of course, obviously, Babylon is destroyed, and then she rises again in the form also of the same Isis in the time of Egypt, and she takes on the same function and use. And then we have the account of Pharaoh that we went over, and how he devoured the children of Israel. He sacrificed them. He did the whole blood ritual stuff with them. I hate talking about this stuff, but basically same old story in Egypt, and then Israel had to be released, but they were dealing with the same gods and the same witches and the same wickedness. And Judah had been lifting up the Star of Remphan and sacrificing to Molech before they actually went into that Egyptian captivity. So of course Yah has to destroy Egypt, and all the plagues have to come upon it, and Israel is released in the first Exodus. Discuss the fact that Halley's Comet is actually Lucifer, very likely Lucifer's star or ship, which most of the angels get according to scripture. And of course, Lucifer means in Hebrew is Haley or Hallel. And so whenever you have a star or basketball player calling himself Hale or Hallel, that's who he is acknowledging. And so he's usually accompanies destructions, and his star is lifted up, but that was in the past. Now he is going to be thrown down. Discussed how the same technology being used in the artificial sun today is the same technology that was used in star forts, in the Egyptian temples, etc., with this water and power-based electricity. And we discussed the fact that there may be a similar dark star or sun at the center of the earth, perhaps where the fallen and Lucifer has his kingdom here on earth. So we took a look at the smoky god, and we took a look at how people worshipped in that land, which they called Eden, but might very well likely be the old Jerusalem or the Azores hidden somewhere where Satan rules from. But nonetheless, inside there is a dark star or an artificial sun that people worship, and that the worship of Lucifer is also always connected to. We discussed other cataclysms that may have driven the continents apart and separated Israel from Egypt, because they were always aligning themselves together. And so we talked about how the fall of the Temple of Solomon and the first Babylonian and Assyrian captivity kicked off the end of Israel, and that when they were in Babylon and they were in Assyria, they were still dealing with these fallen angels and their false gods and their wicked practices. Discussed how cataclysms in Britain and Morocco and the Northern Kingdom may have happened according to scripture during the time of the Assyrian captivity. Discuss the Greek and Roman captivities in the West. That would be like in the former Soviet Union or Russia and Canada and the United States, and the types of gods that were worshipped and how Israel was treated there. Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you this so that you can understand the circumstances under which the Israelites were held captive, and the culture of the Greeks and their spiritual practices around all of these topics of child trafficking, fallen angel giants and false gods and all this stuff. The Temple of Diana at Ephesus during the time of the Romans, or Artemis in Greece, was one of the largest temples in both times. Why? Because of prostitution was part of the temple worship. So Diana in the Roman religion is goddess of wild animals. The hunt identified with the Greek goddess Artemis, and her name is akin to the Latin words Diem, or sky god. Like her Greek counterpart, she's also a goddess of domestic animals. In Greek mythology, Diana was called Artemis. She's also associated with fertility and nature. And so why is this important? Well, another one of her forms is the Statue of Liberty, or Ishtar. Okay, and the thing about Ishtar is that this is the harlot god, as I said, the harlot goddess. And so she's associated with prostitution. And Babylonia was a city of prostitution. We see also another name for her was Leto, and she's the god who is the protector of the orphans. And then as Diana, she's the many-breasted god, so she brings in, or goddess, she brings in many children, okay? And basically, it's through her trafficking of children and prostitution that she is able to feed the pedophilia and the fallen angels in the culture of the Greeks and the Egyptians. And so very typically, harlots were social outcasts. And so she was often, as Liberty, referred to the mother of exiles. And so this is why the Statue of Liberty was associated with her, mother of immigrants, the mother of aliens, alien nation, okay? So she is the goddess of love and fertility and mother of harlots. So we're going to see her that way when we start looking more so at Americas as it is in the present time. But her Latin name is Liberty, or Libertas. And the way that she was used, or people misused women and children through her worship in Greece and Rome, was that prostitutes would have to worship her at the temple. And it was actually something that most women would just have to do as part of their religion. They would have to worship at the temple, by copulating with other people. And if you were so unfortunate as to have a baby, you could have that baby, and the baby would be sacrificed to Moloch in a fire beneath the temple that was always burning for the god Molech, for those gods. Or you could leave your baby on the steps of the temple, and the temple would take that baby in and make it into a prostitute, or a prostitute for pedophiles, or sacrifice it, or whatever. This is the kind of thing they were doing in Greece, and that Israel had to endure under the Greek captivity. The Greeks were Canaanites originally, and they were descended from the Homo capensis. In other words, they had these sort of odd-shaped heads, and they're associated with Freemasonry, Rosicrucian, all this regular stuff that everybody knows now. And of course, they're part of the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha German line, which is related to Queen Elizabeth. And once again, they're Canaanite from the time of antiquity with an O-negative blood type. And these, obviously, they worship dark forces, etc. So that is who the Greeks were, and they took over the identity of the Gentiles and very much bred in with them. And then, as the Canaanites usually do, they take over an identity. Basically, I'm trying to show you all of these instances of wrath, to show you what Yah's wrath looked like, and also to show you that there was a massive destruction all over the earth that preceded this current empire. And so I just want you to track with this, continue to track with me, follow me. I'm getting to my point about how this fits into all these other things that are happening right now. But I want you to recognize that we are at the end of the world, and that all of that was witnessing the end of Israel's world and how it affected the whole planet globally. And it came through Esau Edom, which in 2nd Esdras it says Esau is the end of the world. So let's get a little bit of a picture of Esau Edom at this time as the actual dragon, Satan, the instrument that is used to end the world of the Hebrews from the fall of the temple, or the first actually Babylonian fall, all the way until now. Now, it's in these times that we begin to see this image of Ophrus appearing. We see this image of this little baby or child with this giant who is carrying the child over the waters, over the ocean, and has this odd relationship with a little child who is the symbol of life and blood. All right, and so these are popular images all around this times. And so I'm just trying to tie back in a little bit. Just like in Greece, and just like in Egypt, and just like in Babylon, there was human sacrifice again, and Herod slaughtered all the children of Israel. Many people possessed of the devil because they are doing all these unholy practices and doing glossolalia, speaking in confused tongues and allowing spirits into them. So, of course, Yahusha has to cast all these demons out of all kinds of people. Rome, and this of course is the time when the temple falls. They have the 70 weeks to make everything right, and Yahusha comes in the 70th week, and Israel does not receive him. And when he's talking to his disciples who do receive him, they say, "What shall be the sign of the end?" And he says, "But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then you know that the desolation is near." So that's the spreading flood. "And let those who are in Judea flee to the mountain, and those who are in the midst of her depart, and let those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." And so this is what happened after the fall of the temple in 70 AD. This is one of the most important points that we make at this time when the fall of the temple occurs. What happens? Once again, we are getting into child trafficking, human sacrifice. But what happens at this time when Israel goes into captivity? It says, "They have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot." In other words, they are trafficking the children, and sold the girl for a glass of wine. So we're talking about these, again, going back to those satanic practices of sodomy and the girl for a glass of wine. In other words, they're doing human sacrifice. Okay, so it's right here at the fall of the temple. Israel is cut off for their parts and trafficked into the four corners of the earth. As before, behold, in those days and at that time I shall bring again the captivity of Yehuda and Jerusalem, and I also gather all the nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of judgment. Valley of Jehoshaphat is actually the Mediterranean Sea, which was flooded when Israel was scattered. So all that area you see around the Mediterranean Sea, where all those beautiful, white buildings and blue buildings of Morocco and Greece and everything, that overlooks the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and that has been flooded. And he says that he will eventually plead with the nations there for Yasharel, his people, his heritage, as they return from the west, who have been scattered among the nations because they parted the land. The nations parted the land. They separated the northern kingdom of Israel from the southern kingdom of Israel. They called it Western Europe. And then, of course, we discussed the fact that Israel fled into the north, into Europe, and of course was chased by Esau, Edom, into the north, and their kingdoms there were defeated by the Arabs, the Black Edomite Arabs, and eventually, and the popes that were set up by Black Edom and King Charles, the great Holy Roman Empire, emperor who was also black, and all of his offspring, Prince Philip, and the Medicis, the Black Edomites, all of these people of Edom taking over Israel, both in the west, where they ruled with the Kingdom of Israel in the west, in North America, as well as the indigenous people there. And also they took over, obviously, all of Europe. And we discussed the fact that in Europe, they practiced a terrible ritual, the same rituals practiced from the beginning, which was, Bloodlibel. And notice how BEL is in there. And they murdered many children and captured many children and slew the children of Israel. The Black Edomites slew their brother Esau, their brother Jacob. And this included those of Mount Seir, the Horites, the Saxe-Coburg, and the Canaanites. All right, so they were working with Edom to do this. So the blacks and the whites. Their brother Jacob and Esau took many of them over to the west. And also during these Grand Inquisition sessions, many people were also, again, tortured and murdered, and children taken away and children taken into captivity. Same formula. And so we found ourselves once again with the inescapable connection between the KKK, the Grand Inquisitors, the KKK, or the Catholics in Spain, who wear the same outfits as the Inquisitors, who are represented in the art of the Chapman brothers. And we tied all of this into the transatlantic slave trade, again, looking at the similarities between some of these female witches today and people like the White Witch of Rose Hall, Madame Delphine, and the laws, the casual killing laws for white women regarding just letting them get off scot-free for murdering or molesting children. And so talked about the various forms of trauma-based mind control perpetrated against male and female slaves by white men and overseers as well, and the fact that they were fed probably not really to alligators but to fallen angels.
And they've been involved with mind control techniques for a long time. A lot of what they did with the black people was for purposes of they were very skillfully using trauma and divide and conquer against the black people when they enslaved them. And I don't have time to go into all the ideas behind what they did to the black people, but just leave you with the idea that the reason that they brought over the black people like they did in the ships, with so many dying, and the way they separated them from their past and everything, it was all utilizing mind-controlled techniques.
So Enoch has shown a place terrible with tortures, and this is on the north side, where all manner of tortures take place, cruel darkness, unilluminated gloom, and there is no light but murky fire that constant flameth thereof, and a fiery river that comes forth. And then the whole place everywhere is fire, and everywhere there is frost and ice, thirsting and shivering, while the bonds are very cruel, and the angels fearful and merciless, bearing angry weapons, merciless torture. And so he asks, what is this place? And those men said unto me, this place, O Enoch, is prepared for those who dishonor Yahuwah, who on the earth practice sin against nature, which is child corruption after the sodomitic fashion, magic making, enchantments, and devilish witchcrafts, and who boast of their wicked deeds, stealing, lies, calumnies, envy, rancor, fornication, murder, and who, accursed, steal the souls of men. The life is in the blood, the soul is in the blood. Who, seeing the poor, take away their goods, and themselves wax rich, injuring them for other men's goods. Who, being able to satisfy the empty, made the hungering to die, being able to clothe, strip the naked. Who knew not their Creator, and bowed to the soulless and lifeless gods, who cannot see nor hear, vain gods, who also built hewn means to cut out, hewn images, and bow down to the unclean handiwork. For all these is prepared this place among these for eternal inheritance. Human, to hew a man, to form a man. Human comes out of the word hewn. So this is to gash, strike with a weapon, hold fast, hew, stick to, kadur, beat. A pocket knife making sharply hewn sticks, one after another. Okay, and so what do we see in the genetic process whereby the soul or person of a living person is put into the egg of a newborn person to take over their identity? You have to jab the egg, cut into it, and create that usurper's image within the image of the child. So Amos 5:26 says, you shall take up Sikha, your king, and your hewn, your star god, your images that you made for yourself. In other words, Yah is warning that this is what they're going to do, and that he doesn't like this. They make these hewn images. This is the images the angels made, which you see on the Sistine Chapel, because Yah made man out of his hands and breathed life into him with his mouth. But this is a hand of a fallen angel forming a man, right? By poking, cutting towards him. Acts 7:43, you took up the tent of Molech, right? The god that children are sacrificed to, and the star of your god Remphan, the images that you made to worship. And I will send you into exile beyond Babylon. So Israel was sent here to the west. And now the angels were not created for procreation, so they created their own mankind. They hewn them out with their hands, okay? With their instruments. So the translation of Raphan is Kayun or Chin or Kawan or Kayun, which, and some of the other scriptures don't even translate it at all, but that sounds like Chin or Cain, Kayan, right? And so, but you have borne the tabernacle of Molech and your Chin Kayun images, the star of your God, which you made to yourselves. And so this is Assyrian, Phoenician, and it relates to the Saturn god. And this is again a Canaanite name. So this is a set of people or giants, and this is something Israel did as well to send them into captivity. This is what Esau Edom does. This is what the fallen seed does. Yes, they do. They create hewn images. They create their own offspring, mankind, with their own hands, trying to imitate Yah, but they have to work with his genetic material to start with. So we went into how the fallen angels' children just are doomed to wander about the earth like clouds, like ghosts, with no bodies to inhabit, no place of judgment to await in, and they can't return to the bosom of Abraham like the offspring of Yahuwah. And so they wander like clouds in the earth, but at the end of time, they will occupy offspring of mankind again and pour out wrath on the earth through these clouds that they inhabit. So we said that ghosts are those clouds which they walk around in. So if you see a ghost, that's who you're seeing. Those are your ancestors if you're of that seed. All right? Or they masquerade as your ancestors if you're not of that seed. So what do we have in The Secret Doctrine? Madame Blavatsky's book. She talks about these different races that are made, that are birthed and rebirthed over and over again. So souls possessing human vessels over and over again, thinking there's some kind of false sense of redemption in that, a second chance. This is what she talks about, that there's this doctrine in which this death and rebirth happens, and that the second chance would be given to those who practiced exceptional ordinances. So this is a false faith and hope given to the offspring of the fallen and their half fallen angel spirits that inhabit and possess human beings through things like cloning. So there's this movie directed by Antoine Fuqua with Mark Wahlberg and Chitwan, I can never pronounce his name, Elfer. He represents Esau Edom, Black Edom, okay? And he's had it with the 400 years of slavery. He began to rebel 300 years ago, being the tale also Edom has had to suffer, okay? So that's why we see Black Hollywood, the Black Edomites trying to rise up, and athletes and everything, against the system, waiting for their opportunity. Mark Wahlberg plays the fallen angel seed who keeps reincarnating into all these bodies, and they're projecting this fantasy in the movie that he can somehow redeem himself by saving the earth and doing righteously as he steals the bodies and souls of mankind to do it. And so this is his old incarnation, him seeing himself in the past as one of these 500-year-old fallen angel giants. And so in Infinity, he is imagining that he's going to save the earth from the black sun. This is spoiler alert, obviously, right? The black star, like the Darth Vader star that Esau Edom is sending out. Because what? Esau Edom is the end of the world. And of course, Antoine Fuqua, he was adopted by a white family, and he grew up to direct in Hollywood because very often the Edomite sons are given to white families to be adopted, just as was done with Nathan Meyer Rothschilds. He was either mixed race or half Edomite or full Edomite, but he was adopted into that bloodline. Now, I'm not sure that Antoine Fuqua was, but this is the pattern. You're thrown out like Satan was, disavowed by your father, and then adopted into the fallen family. So, Negro, Black, Nathan Meyer Rothschilds, Edom took over the British economy as a Black Edomite adopted under a white Rothschilds, okay? And so that's how they work, the Black Edomites, with the white Horites and Rothschilds and Canaanites. Then again, we talked about the Hebrew World Wars. We talked about how the Zeppelins could have been perceived as stars of wrath, and they were used in many wars. In Napoleon used them. They were used in the Crimean War. They were used in the the American revolutions and wars, and that was a global world war taking place in the West Indies, in Africa, in Ethiopia, all the way into Australia. The Hebrews were fighting all over the planet in these wars during slavery and as, quote, slavery was ending, unquote. And so during this time, a lot of the same kind of behavior was done, especially once they lost the war. Not only was this MK Ultra being performed in slavery, but it was performed post-war as well. A lot of people in Britain and Europe and in the Americas were put into asylums and brainwashed, and children were separated as usual from their parents and indoctrinated in the ways of the fallen and the ways of the Gentiles. And as all of this was happening, we discussed also, we went into the fact that Diana and Artemis and Liberty and the two were associated with the two women and the basket carrying the stork, these other people, these children of the offspring, in to repopulate the lands in America and the lands in Europe as well. And we talked about how this Canadian newspaper discussed how incubators would be used to expand the population of this expanding brood, as I quoted from Wisdom of Solomon, about all of the quotes that talked about these fallen angels' children and how Yah did not recognize them and how much they multiply. So we went into a lot of those scriptures as well, and we talked about the whole incubator society that was set up and the orphan trains that were set up to spread these children all over the earth for the mother of harlots, the mother of Babylon. And at the same time, so Israel was also being spread as slaves all over the earth. Discuss the orphan trains and the residential schools, the fact that even Gentile children were put in residential schools here in North America, the indigenous people, and the fact that this has not been done under all of heaven to any other nation as what has been done to the children of Israel. And then I'll just review these scriptures about all of these births. But the multiplying brood of the ungodly shall not thrive, nor take deep root from bastard slips, nor lay any fast foundation. So bastard slips means false fathers, fallen angel fathers, their inseminated seed or their own creations that they're creating scientifically. For though they flourish in branches for a time, so this is also the grafted in who persecute Israel and don't take root in righteousness. For though they flourish in branches, the grafted in branches for a time, yet standing not fast, they shall be shaken with the wind through the force of the wind. They shall be rooted out. The imperfect branches shall be broken off, their fruit unprofitable, not right to eat. Ye meet for nothing. For children begotten of unlawful beds are a witness of the wickedness of their parents in their trial. We are esteemed of him as counterfeits. He abstaineth from our ways as from filthiness. He pronounceth the end of lust to be blessed, and maketh his boast that Yahuwah is his father. So we talked about the high incidence of O-negative blood in North America, the two women and the basket, and the orphans of the storks, and how this all ties into the whore of Babylon and sowing the seed of Israel with the seed of man and beast, and that they did many experiments for these beast-like creatures, which they seem to even be creating in these nether worlds and manufacturing in these nether worlds. Now, this could be movie footage, from a sci-fi, but nonetheless. And so now we're going to get into how MK Ultra ties into all of this just a little bit more, the history. Lebensstrom. was an SS-initiated, state-supported registered association in Nazi Germany with the stated goal of increasing the number of children born who met the Nazi standards of racially pure and healthy Aryans based on Nazi eugenics. Its founder was Heinrich Himmler. And you see the Vril were also witches, were also involved with this. Again, the objective of Lebensborn was to breed out the human and recreate the Übermensch, or pure Nephilim blood again, the children of the fallen, or to potentially give them bodies for the spirits to dwell in, right? Maybe? So we see in Operation Paperclip that Nazi German scientists were sent both to Russia and America. And so how did that pan out after the war?
This is the story of a 30-year search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. Some of those engaged in that search have agreed to talk about it for the first time. The search would be endless. From brothels, an agent says, we learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom, to the mystical rites of a magical mushroom ceremony performed by an Indian shaman, to a Spanish bull ring. The bull has had electrodes implanted in the brain and is controlled by a scientist. There would be victims. One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets. This bizarre man would be an active participant in that search over the next 2 decades. His name is George White, an OSS captain who had formerly been with the Bureau of Narcotics. In his diary, seen here publicly for the first time, White left a legacy of the darker side of American intelligence work. He received his early OSS training at the British-run school at Oshawa, Canada, the same school where Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, was trained. White referred to the school in his diaries as the Oshawa School of Mayhem and Murder. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans. As one CIA document says, such testing would be operationally realistic. History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius. Army experiments continued on mental patients around the country. Work done at the Tulane Medical Center in New Orleans involved several drugs, hallucinogenics, and electrodes implanted in the brain. The chief researcher was Dr. Russell Monroe. Now, Dr. Monroe, what do you think the Army Chemical Corps was looking for in all of this testing?
They were looking for an incapacitating agent, an agent that would not harm the person permanently, but would incapacitate them temporarily. That seemed like a humanistic way to wage a war, if war is necessary.
When James Thornwell was given LSD by Army intelligence in 1961, this time it was no experiment. This time the express purpose was to peel back Thornwell's brain to bear any secret within it. For 16 years, Thornwell never knew what had hit him. Tell me about the acid.
I'd rather not. It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. That was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating. Felt like somebody was sticking me with 1,000,000 pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just... Oh, I lived through it. I lived through it. I lived through it.
No charges were ever brought by the Army against Thornwell. He was discharged for psychological disorders. But an Army psychiatric evaluation of Thornwell obtained by ABC News, one which was done prior to Thornwell having been given LSD, says of him, fairly cooperative, oriented, alert, and gave no evidence of psychosis or depression. From the Army's point of view, this type of LSD interrogation was a success. Documents clearly show that the CIA was attempting to develop agents over whom they had as much control as possible. Agents who would perform tasks contrary to their own good.
Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill and then to have no memory of having killed. His brain has not only been washed, as they say, it has been dry cleaned.
Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, whom we recently filmed near his California home, oversaw many of the CIA behavioral programs. He retired in 1973 and destroyed the records of this work. In sort of a valedictory letter, Dr. Gottlieb wrote that he and his colleagues had been able to maintain contact with the leading edge of developments in the field of biological and chemical control of human behavior. And what of George White, the man who helped the agency in so many of its programs? He would retire here to Stinson Beach, California. And shortly before his death, he wrote to his boss at the CIA, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, and summed up his career by saying, "It was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, and cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?"
So nothing was new under the sun. Not only was this ritual magic practiced and demonic possession, but it was successful. And from the 60s, 70s onward, outdoor orgies and drug taking became manifest at concerts, and culminating in the Travis Scott concert lately, which added frequency, weapons, and control to the whole scenario. And so watch that video if you want more information on that. Currently, top Republicans are calling for a meeting with TikTok CEO over child safety dangers. House lawmakers have asked for a brief meeting with top brass. Shouzi Chu is under pressure to meet with Republicans because TikTok has been incapable of rooting out a spate of TikTok accounts that are trading illegal child sexual content. House lawmakers said Wednesday, citing November Forbes investigation that revealed how illicit private handles on the platform are hiding child abuse materials in plain sight, posted using a setting that makes it visible only to the person logged in. Equally troubling are the live stream your company hosts that allow TikTok users to monetarily persuade children to perform illegal and illicit ad until December 21st to provide a briefing to the government. So I started monitoring a couple of accounts with women, especially black women or mixed race women with babies, the mothers of TikTok, they call themselves, with infants and babies who seem to be practicing this. And I actually found myself, I suspected something like this was going on because they were all linked with one particular weird name that was in one of the comments, a comment made by somebody. And then you link it to that comment, and then just weird stuff started happening on my computer, and I thought I was being hacked because I'm always getting some weird hacking stuff going on. So I just went out of it, and then I tried to go back in, and then I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And so I think this, now that I've read this article, that's what they're doing. It's some kind of access to bad private viewership or something like that. So hopefully the American government is dealing with it, but probably likely not, because this is Babylon and that's what it's based on. Meanwhile, questions about Joe Biden are still being raised about him colluding to suppress sexually inappropriate actions of Hunter with a minor. Text messages from Hunter Biden, his uncle Jim Biden, and an associate who is now a felon, indicate that there may have been a collusion to cover up and even go after the minor that claimed Hunter was sexually inappropriate with. In another text message from Hunter to a family friend, Hunter shares that his mother, Jill Biden, propagates the claims that Hunter is sexually inappropriate around children, and VP Joe Biden is aware as well. Joe Biden's daughter also writes a diary that allegedly reports that he sexually abused and molested her. Shocking sexual allegations are emerging from the reported diary of Ashley Biden, President Joe Biden's daughter, according to the Daily Mail. Ashley Biden, a drug addict, left her personal diary under a mattress in a Palm Beach, Florida halfway house where she stayed during a rehab stint. The diary reportedly details her drug abuse, sex addiction, and her being hypersexualized. Ashley Biden also recounts times when she showered with her father when she was young, something she allegedly wrote was probably not appropriate. I remember having sex with friends at a young age, showers with my dad, probably not appropriate. The diary reportedly came to light after a Florida woman who stayed in the room with Ashley Biden vacated the halfway house and discovered it in 2020 and sold it for $40,000 to a media organization. Corey is the child of a very successful music industry celebrity who was trafficked and traumatized even from the age of 3 months old. She was put in foster care repeatedly. And I've already had videos talking about the medical kidnapping of children, which is happening more and more. But she has been a victim of MK Ultra mind control, and she does have superhuman powers, which we'll talk about later. Now, these are the allegations she is making against President Go to Ali's Army to find out more about this. But her story does seem valid, and at the very least, it provides information about how this mind control and super soldiers works. I'm simply quoting her but for fair use in this video, but I can't perfectly validate everything that she is saying nor be held responsible for it.
How I knew I was going to win because of trauma-based mind control programming. Things that were done to me since I was 3 months old. I can do things that normal people can't do because of those things. And the first time that I met was underneath the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, California. I was there for a cock party. I walked through the museum and through a field trip. There were kids, there were adult chaperones, there were parents. And we walked through the museum, through the garden area, and employees led us to underground tunnels. We had to take an elevator and stairs. And by the time that we got there, I noticed the air started changing. It's different, it burns your nose. It makes you choke a little bit because the air is just different after a certain point. There is a different city under the ground. There's different life under the ground. There is a different air supply. There's different everything. There's all means of transportation under the ground. Every means of transportation. There's cities underground. There's going deeper, and there's more dirt, and then there's cages of children. No. On that job, we had to be led. There is no way that you can just walk into a tunnel. The entrances and the exits are in your face, but there's no way that you can just walk through tunnels. You'll get stuck. You'll go deeper and deeper, and you won't be able to come back out because it's hard, because the tunnels run all different directions for miles and miles and miles and miles. So if you go down the wrong one, people build these tunnels, and they've built them for decades. There's bodies of victims that are babies, adults, limbs, bloody shrines. There's kids down there that act like animals. There's people who run science experiments on babies. There's baby farms. There's a lot in elite celebrities.
It's okay, it's okay. I'm Celine Dion.
Our children, they are not really our children. For us, they are everything.
That I was seeing things that weren't making sense. Like Ali saying that on the 4th of July, she had to serve her country, and that meant she was sold for sex or auctioned. It took me a while to find out that she had military level programming, that she had been trafficked on our military bases. I took her to the church. The church wasn't able to help her. They wanted to cast out demons. They didn't know about DID. They didn't know about MK Ultra. They didn't know about any of those things, and they didn't know any of the altars. They just wanted to cast out demons. That didn't set right with me. That wasn't right. You've met some of the altars. Yes, demonic stuff plays a part in MK Ultra. It's like an unholy alliance. They've merged the MK Ultra and the satanic ritual abuse and the occult and demons into the programming. But the altars are not demons. They cannot be cast out. So why would I take her to the church when they didn't understand the whole picture? I took her to psychiatrists or psychologists for MK Ultra. So if you're a survivor, please be very careful. I know there's a lot of people that want to do deliverance for survivors. I know there's a lot of people that want to integrate survivors, do hypnosis, cast demons out. Please be very careful, because not everybody has your best interest at heart.
So how do all of these seemingly disparate things tie together? The Chinese sun, the smoky god, the black sun, the comets, the Chapman brothers, underground cities, human trafficking, child pedophilia, mind control, Baalenciaga, and the Ukrainian president. And of course, it's always tied to the transatlantic slave trade, mind control, MK Ultra, and the fallen controlling children. Is the public really so jaded about the topic of pedophilia and perverts being around children? Or is it really just the elite?
The other thing I'd like to bring up, if I may,
yes,
is the way you are now referring to Andrew Windsor.
Yes, is that incorrect?
That is absolutely incorrect.
What should it be?
Whatever you think about him, his correct title is His Royal Highness Prince Andrew.
The paedophile's friend.
And it's the same with Meghan. Everybody seems to refer to her as Meghan. She's not Meghan. She's now the Duchess of Sussex.
Well, she's whoever she wants to be.
No, she's not.
Yes,
That's
she
her
is.
title.
Okay, can I say His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, the paedophile's friend?
How many friends have you got that may have done silly things or bad things?
Well, none that have been jailed for it, Muffy. How many have you got? None
that have been jailed, but I've had a number that have done silly things.
You think that raping teenage girls gets filed under silly things?
No, absolutely not.
I think you've delighted us for long
absolutely
enough.
Not.
Alex is in Camden. Alex, what would you like to say?
I think this is a witch hunt on Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. I think this is it's anti-Semitism. I think Jeffrey
Good
Epstein
grief, I thought the last
innocent.
call was mad. Amanda is in Datchet. Amanda, what would you like to say?
Hello there, yes. I just want to know, is it fair that we blanket the whole royal family for one member's actions? If somebody in my family did something wrong, would it be fair that everybody dissed my whole family for their actions?
I don't know that anyone is doing that, are they?
Well, I think that's what came over last night on the TV, was that,
well, let's listen to it again. Let's listen to it again.
Is the monarchy fit for purpose? Jeremy Corbyn.
Needs a bit of improvement.
Mr Johnson.
The institution of the monarchy is beyond reproach.
Is
Where's the... sort of tarring everyone with the same brush thing there.
First of all, I think Jeremy Corbyn is in no position to.
No, I didn't ask
say
you that. I asked you,
publicly to the House.
where's the tarring everyone with the same brush bit there in what I just played you?
Well, I think the monarchy needs some improvement, does it? I think it does. I think.
So you're agreeing with Jeremy Corbyn?
I agree that no. I don't think the monarchy needs some improvement.
You don't think they should get rid of the man who hangs out with paedophiles?
So tell me, if you are friends.
I'm asking you questions. I'm asking you questions.
Yeah?
Would the monarchy be improved by getting rid of a member who hangs around with paedophiles?
No.
Right. This is a fascinating phone-in, and I'd just like you to expand on that. So if you were friends with a paedophile, you don't think that your status would be improved by not being friends with them anymore?
I think you have to look at the whole picture.
I am.
Am I friends with the paedophile because he's a paedophile, or am I friends with a friend?
Here you
because
are
he's
on the
been a friend
radio.
of mine?
Here you actually are on the radio, talking about the various circumstances in which you could be friends with a paedophile. I bet you didn't think this was going to happen when you woke up this morning, did you?
Do you want to let me finish?
Not really.
Okay, then there's no point me phoning in.
I don't like talking to people who can be friends with paedophiles, actually, or people who split hairs over it. But it's good that you agreed with Jeremy Corbyn. I bet you weren't expecting to do that when you woke up this morning either.
I did not agree with Jeremy Corbyn.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry and Meghan. Meanwhile, Jeremy Clarkson is blasted for saying he dreams of Meghan Markle being paraded naked through the streets and that he hates her more than serial killer Rose West in extreme column. So former Home Secretary tweets, "I'm your age, Jeremy Clarkson, and I couldn't disagree with you more. Why do you have to be so horrible?" And he says, "I can't believe it's good for you, and it certainly isn't good for the rest of us." Someone else says, "I'm sorry, but what has Meghan Markle done to deserve to be more hated than Rose West, the serial killer? I'm trying to think what she has done that's worse than what Rose did. This is just vile and disgusting. Is Jeremy Clarkson upset that Meghan stood up for herself?" Clarkson also says, "But what makes me despair is that younger people, especially girls, think she's pretty cool. They think she was a prisoner of Buckingham Palace, forced to talk about nothing but embroidery and kittens. That makes me even angrier. Can't they see everything that's happening is so very obviously pre-planned?" Well, who would compare Meghan Markle to a serial killer? Threaten her with hate and say she should be drugged through the streets naked. Are any of these people saying anything about these royals when there is literally charges against them in the Supreme Courts for being serial killers? Once again, the Queen of England was held culpable for this, for the disappearance of 10 native children. You see, it always comes back to race. Again, when we talk about the creative director of Baalenciaga, Demna, and his connection to the President Zelensky, we have to wonder, what is this about? He was his key fundraiser. And so what does it mean? Demna is ambassador over the fundraising of the Ukrainian president's campaign. Balenciaga is one of the biggest name brands in the world, so it makes sense that they would be connected to some of the most famous celebrities. United 24 was launched on May 5th, 2022 to act as a main venue for collecting charitable donations in support of the Ukraine. As stated on their official website, so far the charity has raised $233 million. Demna Gvasalia, creative director of Balenciaga, who to some people believe is behind the brand's recent distributing gift shop campaign, in other words, they're distributing some kind of a gift, became the ambassador for United 24 just 2 months after its launch. And President Zelensky himself thanked Demna's support of Ukraine during the Balenciaga Winter 22 show in March 2022. Okay? So, and that's when the creative director shared his own personal experience as a refugee. Well, apparently the Ukraine has been on a campaign to help orphan children find homes, be gifted with homes. Well, there are over 750 orphanages in the Ukraine. And so there has been an issue with baby factories being exposed in the Ukraine. So, claiming some reports have emerged of systematic exploitation in Ukrainian surrogacy businesses, with one expert labeling some of the worst clinics as baby factories. Ukraine's surrogacy industry has put women in impossible positions. Vulnerable young people are a high-risk group for becoming human trafficking victims. The latest results from the survey conducted by the International Organization for Migration say. So this surrogacy industry has put women in vulnerable positions. So that means women are being trafficked as surrogates. Okay, but it may mean more than that with the technology that we've just talked about. Newsweek reports on the epidemic of trafficking in the Ukraine as it remains one of Europe's most notorious sources of human trafficking. Since 1991, more than 160,000 men, women, and children have been exploited for labor, sex, forced begging, etc. The Huffington Post reports that governments, faith-based groups, churches, aid agencies, and tourists who donate cash and goods to orphanages or build and refurbish children's homes and other institutions may be inadvertently funding human trafficking. Poor and disabled children locked away and out of sight from families and their communities are sitting ducks for traffickers and pedophiles, and nefarious staff are often the beneficiaries of perverse transactions where captive children are the commodity. And what are we seeing going on with the whole Ukrainian war? We're seeing a lot of children being evacuated. Russia is said to have been transporting Ukrainian orphans over the border, violating international law. More than 200,000 Ukrainian children have been reported missing. Some have ended up in Russia, where they are put up for adoption. And here's this woman named Tatiana Tolstrokova, 56, is sure she recognized her missing 3-year-old granddaughter in a video posted on July 4th on a social media by the Presidential Commissioner for Children's Rights in Russia. But that's a child who has an actual parent. Look how many orphans are being sent all over the world. Ukraine orphans are being evacuated by Scottish Football Fans Charity for Travel to the UK. A group of 50 orphans evacuated from Ukraine by a charity established by Scottish football fans will arrive in the UK on Monday. After drying tears for abandoned teddy bears and navigating the demands of international bureaucracy, the children will be welcomed with open arms, say these people in Edinburgh. All right? And so these children have been staying in Poland and then are being brought to the UK. And so we have these images also of the Canadian government helping children, Ukrainian children, orphans, find homes. As war rages in the Ukraine, some Canadians are still trying to make a difference on the ground. Chad Martz and his family are helping displaced orphans through the organization Hungry for Life International. Hungry for Life International. He speaks about his involvement and how others can help. And so this is kind of extraordinary because there's a very low birth and conception rate among Caucasian women. So how are these women becoming baby factories? And how are these children going all over the world, this plethora of children?
Our children, they are not really our children. For us, they are everything. We miss the past. They dream of tomorrow. We may thrust them forward into the future, but the course will always be theirs to choose. I can't believe they called security.
Mentioned already, the Lebensborn children were part of the Nazi experiments, working with vril women with extremely long hair, witches, and these Nazi-based eugenics. Nazi means to nasa. So it can be a Nazarene or it can be one who exalts themselves. So these would be the fallen angels. And so these Lebensborn children were supposed to be Ubermensch or pure Nephilim children. And interestingly enough, there is actually a video game that involves these Lebensborn children. And if you look at them, they're hardcore droids. So hardcore is a word used in the pornography industry for hardcore porn, meaning snuff or like murderous porn. So the question is, are these avatar orphans set up for people to practice, rehearse trauma-based mind control and ritual sacrifice and abuse on? Trauma-based mind control via computer video game. And as you can see from these pictures of these paintings that were found in the households of the Podestas during that whole Pizzagate affair, their eyes look just like the Lebensborn children. They look like they've been traumatized. They're vacant. They've been removed from their bodies due to trauma. This is why they were so careful to feature the judge's decision to permit virtual child pornography as long as it didn't include real children in the content. Well, how are we going to even know that? But that's why this is featured in the Baalenciaga ad. And so with the whole MK Ultra affair, it starts to look like they want people to be initiated and practice this satanic religion on children to split their personalities and to bring out these demonic forces within them, or, you know, through whatever these processes are, this wickedness. And so this seems to be the reason why all of these fashion industry people are promoting this, why it's said that these will be children of the beast. That's kind of what the Chapman brothers are saying with those images, that those will be beast-like children, like the children underground who act like animals. And to aid in this process, thousands of convicted pedophiles have been released from prison. In California alone, 7,000 pedophiles, on the basis that they have to let them out sometime, some doing less than 2 months, according to these articles. You can screenshot them to take a look at them. The great and mighty clouds shall be puffed up, full of wrath, and the star, that they may make all the earth afraid, and them that dwell therein, and they shall pour out over every high and eminent place a horrible star, fire and hail and flying swords, and many waters, that all fields may be full, and all rivers with the abundance of great waters. And they shall go steadfastly unto Babylon, and make her afraid, and they shall come to her and besiege her, the star and all the wrath they pour out upon her. Then shall the dust and smoke go up unto the heaven, and all they that be about her shall bewail her. And thou, O Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee. So, hasn't there been a lot of flooding all over the earth from this perhaps star of wrath? But is this the sun that they're going to launch into the sky? Because the Europeans are trying to launch an artificial sun as well. Are these weapons? Turn and D waves seem to be set up to enable spirits to pass into this realm. And the star of wrath will elicit a kind of radiation, cold fusion, but still a kind of radiation. Not only, and it's mentioned by Clinton in these MK Ultra experiments, this radiation. So not only will this be a weapon of wrath and destruction, but it may seek also to alter the genetics of people so that other entities can gain the advantage within clones subjected to trauma-based mind control and internal nanotechnologies that have been put into them via injection or some kind of a mark or tattoo. To the extent at some point here where women will actually give birth to monsters, or their offspring may become them. As Enoch 15:10 said, they come forth, the giants, during the days of slaughter and destruction. The giants come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction.
You say, fast forward to the future, if I was 86 years old, well, this is gonna sound very, very crazy. I'm already like 3,000 years old right now. I just tell people I'm 33 because I don't age. Like 3,000. I know that's gonna sound weird, but I don't age. I'm immortal. There's nothing new under the sun. My mother had sex with an angel, was born an immortal, and ain't even know it.
So, somehow the bait for people is just going to be utter depravity or perhaps these superhuman powers. So there's this weird account of these two Swedish women committing folie à deux, which is supposed to be when two people kind of link up and they commit a crime. But it's very odd because they supposedly get hit by cars and all this stuff with police and all these witnesses around multiple times. And they get up and they keep going and they're unusually strong. And even when they get separated for days, one of them still goes on to go and commit this heinous murder. But everyone keeps remarking at how they're hit by cars, hit by huge trucks, and they still seem to get up and run away or get up and resist the police. So this is supposed to be an example of that. But, you just never know. But you do hear about these things. But all of this is to say that the fallen ones are looking for an army. They're looking for an army of people to fight against the Hebrew Israelites when they wake up. When the Hebrew Israelites wake up, because the Hebrew Israelites will be Yah's battle axes and weapons of warfare to fight against the nations. That's what's going to happen. And so that's what they're looking for through these MK Ultra soldiers.
She was perfectly okay.
Fucking hell! No! Fuck you guys! Fuck you! Yeah. Fuck off!
She's had a serious impact with the vehicle, to a point of us actually getting her resuscitated out at one point because she was unconscious.
Now, there's also the videos on social media that are baiting people by advertising the history of some of the most depraved people who've mistreated children and actually filmed it. And so they're trying to bait people, into practicing this blood libel. And I'm not going to name any of them because I don't want to incite people. But they're basically initiating people into Satanism at this point. And so, as the scriptures say about the offspring of the fallen, they hatch cockatrices' eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. Their web shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity, wasting and destruction are in their paths. The way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Look at these children who are being born inside of these nests, like the Borg, like eggs, like hatching out of cockatrice eggs, as the scripture says. All right? Won't these machines be able to traumatize the children from birth in the womb and give them some kind of superhuman power? Is it possible with all these babies born in incubators now, and now, you know, they're going to be a willing option for gay and lesbian couples, infertile parents, or women who can't bear children or want to preserve their bodies. And so even in this incubation, the children can be traumatized in the womb and mind controlled and possessed. So it seems like these nests may be an incubator for the spirits of the fallen, for the fallen angels to go into. Because as we said, the spirits of the fallen are doomed to wander the earth. King Og the giant is mentioned numerous times in scripture as either Nephilim or a first generation giant, or having survived the floods. Now, as we said, these beings do not have corporeal bodies, but they seek to inhabit humans. They are known by many names, though commonly as demons or unclean spirits. All right, so these are the giants who lost their physical bodies to death because of warring, and so they're looking for bodies to inhabit. And again, I guess for these menstruous women to bring forth monsters. You know, will this be inspired by a fear of Israel when Israel awakens? Will Israel, the light shine upon Israel and them have a supernatural power the world will envy and fear? And will this inspire people to take on these wicked practices, to war at any cost against Israel, even the cost of their own children's souls? What is this that's being placed inside of the host? It looks like a parasite. So what are the Chapman brothers trying to show you exactly? Are they enabling human trafficking and pedophilia with their dolls? Well, all I can say is maybe it's monkey see, monkey do. People learn by example. But they're also kind of giving a full disclosure in a way. And again, when we discuss CERN, letting spirits from other realms enter into this realm, and we see this campaign in terms of monkey see, what monkey do, what is it telling the public to do? We have the example of Ursa and Sabina Eriksson, these twins with insane superhuman powers, basically doing a hit on a man. Is it possible that the star of wrath may not just be the sun, but that it may be ultimately used as a weapon against the nations? What is the conclusion of the matter? Daniel 9 says, under the whole of heaven, nothing has ever been done like what has been done to Jerusalem. Just as is written in the law of Moshe, all this disaster has come upon us. Yet we have not sought the favor of Yahuwah our Elohim by turning from our sins and giving attention to your truth. And so now is the time, Israel, to turn your heart towards Yah, confess the sins of your fathers and your own sins, and seek Yahuwah. But the promise is, in these times, this is the time of tribulation. But look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. This is the judgment that is going to be coming on the nations, and the war that is going to be coming against you. But Yah is on your side. He is your Father and your Savior if you choose Him and reject the enemy. So these are the angels for 70 generations who are under the earth, even to the day of judgment and of consummation, until the judgment, the effect of which will last forever, be completed. Okay, so they're there till the day of judgment. Then shall they be taken away into the lowest depths of the fire in torments, and in confinement they shall be shut up forever. Immediately after this shall he, that's Azazel or Ha-Satan, together with them burn and perish, and they shall be bound until the consummation of many generations. Destroy all the souls addicted to dalliance, and the offspring of the watchers, for they have tyrannized over mankind. Let every oppressor perish from the face of the earth. Let every evil work be destroyed. The plant of righteousness and the rectitude appear, and its produce become a blessing. Righteousness and rectitude shall be forever planted with delight. And then shall the saints give thanks and live until they have begotten 1,000 children, while the whole period of their youth and their Sabbaths shall be completed in peace. In those days all the earth shall be cultivated in righteousness. It shall be wholly planted with trees and filled with benediction. Every tree of delight shall be planted in it. The vine which shall be planted in it shall yield fruit to satiety. Every seed which shall be sown in it shall produce for 1 measure 1,000, and for 1 measure of olives shall produce 10 presses of oil. Purify the earth from all oppression, from all injustice, from all crime, from all impiety, from all the pollution which is committed upon it. Exterminate them from the earth. Then shall all the children of men be righteous, and all nations shall pay me divine honors and bless me, and all shall adore me. The earth shall be cleansed from all corruption, from every crime, from all punishment, and from all suffering. Neither will I send again a deluge upon it from generation to generation forever. So this is really the purge that the fallen angels fear. They fear this time of purging. And they terribly fear Yah. You hear the demons cry out when Yahusha visits and tries to cast them out of people. In those days I will open the treasures of blessing which are in heaven, that I may cause them to descend upon the earth and upon all the works and labors of man. Peace and equity shall associate with the sons of men all the days of the world, in every generation of it. And so this is tied to that scripture that says, open up the windows of heaven, bring in the offering, which is the silver and gold, who are Israel, Yah's treasures and Yah's portion, into the storehouse, so into the kingdom of heaven, that I may pour out a blessing upon the earth. And so this is when he's going to pour out the blessing, when the kingdom is returned to Israel and to Yahusha and Yah himself. When you see all of these things, look up Yasharel, for your redemption draweth nigh. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Thank you, everyone, for your donations and support. It means a lot. And subscribe or simply become a member at IntoAllTruth.net to get updates on videos. Subah Yahuwah Reb Aleph Yasharel. Subah Yahuwah Reb Aleph Yasharel. Return, O Yahuwah, to the countless thousands of Israel.
And let those that hate thee flee from before thee. Let all of Yasharah, Yisrael, who love, worship, and praise Yahweh, give him thanks by saying Hallelujah.